$450 Fortnite machine. Ooh. Not again. I've had the console for about a week, at least at the time of writing this video, and I kind of like it. It's nice, it's big, it feels premium. There's a lot of little improvements that I didn't even know I needed. It fits better in my hand, the Joy-Cons are bigger, the mouse controls are really cool, it's funny to have Discord even if the screen share runs like shit and is locked behind a paywall. It's nice to finally have a consistent 60 FPS and 1080p on the TV and in handheld, with the possibility of 120 frames and 4K with the right game on the right TV. Insane that it took them this long to give us that little, but it's nice to finally have. That being said, it does have its problems. Nothing that hasn't been industry standard for a decade, but problems nonetheless. But I'm an informed buyer, I knew what I was getting into. But if I'm being completely honest, there isn't much that any company could do to overshadow the fact that I have another stupid box to play games on. Have I mentioned that I really like video games? Did you guys know this about me yet? But all that being said, I'm really not all that interested in reviewing the system itself, or talking about its controversies, or addressing the misinformation that's been going around. There are plenty of people way more qualified to do that than I ever could be. Personally, I'd rather have a little fun and talk about the games I've been playing. I've always been more of a software guy anyway, and despite the Switch's depressingly limited lineup, I still managed to find a few things to play, and I am infinitely more interested in talking about that. So without further ado, there's a lot to do, a lot to say, and not all that much to play. Let's get started. To absolutely no one's surprise, the first game I played on my brand new system was its primary launch title, Mario Kart World. And I love this game, which was news to me because I kind of hated it at first. It's such a massive departure from series tradition that I couldn't help but raise my eyebrow a little, but the more I play it, the more I fall in love with it. One of the game's two primary gimmicks is its shift from individual tracks to one long continuous race across multiple connected tracks. This means that while the first track in every cup is a full 3 laps, each subsequent track starts with a quick little jaunt from the end of the previous track to the start of the next one. And the tracks themselves are, for the most part, designed as one single continuous course split into separate segments rather than singular loops that you drive through multiple times. And at first, I was like, well, this kind of sucks. But with 8 Mario Karts under our belts and most of them available on the very same system, this game's unique direction becomes a refreshing way to mix things up in a series that can, at times, feel overly familiar. I wouldn't go so far as to call it my preference, but there are a lot of benefits to it. Driving from course to course makes the world of Mario Kart feel alive, and the way that one track seamlessly fades into the next is very cool. They've done a great job of gamifying the would-be boring task of driving from one location to another, and the game's unorthodox design principles not only allow for some of the most unique and creative courses in series history, but also staves off the feeling of repetition that some of the series' more classically designed tracks can foster around the start of their 3rd lap. And it certainly doesn't hurt that the tracks in this game are fucking incredible. They're so energetic and creative and lively. They break damn near every convention the series is known for while still managing to maintain that distinct Mario Kart feel that we all know and love. Every track in this game is great and memorable and unique. In a cast of courses where each and every one is trying something new, they all manage to stand out in a way that few other games can reliably pull off. There are no low points, no bad tracks, not even any boring ones. Even courses with themes that I normally wouldn't care about, like lava tracks and desert tracks and ice tracks and the boring bland Mario circuit tracks, are unique and distinct and exciting to play. This game has my all-time favorite Mushroom Cup, probably my favorite Banana Cup, absolutely my favorite Lightning Cup, and that fucking Special Cup is absolutely the best in the series and contains by far my favorite Rainbow Road. And the addition of an open world is... it's fine. I guess. I don't know. It's not great. It's there. It's there. You can't say that it's not there. It's certainly a part of the game. That's an undeniable fact. It's a good idea with an underwhelming implementation. Mario Kart has always been a series with very beautiful games, where the developers painstakingly create these unique, creative, and awe-inspiring racetracks that you only ever get to see very small parts of. So the idea of crafting an open world where you can go anywhere, explore anything, see these tracks, these courses, this world from all angles in every direction is genius. But the design methodology they went with has resulted in an open world where, much like many of the game's contemporaries, there's a lot to see, but absolutely nothing to do. It's just one big driving simulator with a handful of obstacle courses. You drive from point A to point B to point C until you get bored and go back to the racing. It is fun to explore this open world. It is fun to just go for a drive and explore all of these locations in ways we otherwise never could. I mean, that is the entire appeal of an open world driving sim, but no matter how much time I spend in this open world or how much fun I end up having, I just can't shake the feeling that it's lacking substance. I suppose, to an extent, in a game all about driving in circles, it's not insane to get an open world where the only thing you get to do is drive outside of those circles, but Nintendo has put out some genuinely incredible open worlds over the past few years, and a few others that really weren't all that great, and it just feels kind of underwhelming to get one that's just sort of in the middle and be able to tell the entire time that it's capable of so much more. But outside of just the open world, the game still has a lot to offer. It's got the biggest character roster in series history despite some glaring, depressing omissions. Surely I'm the only person on the planet who's actually sad that Peachette got cut, right? Because, like, I know it's just Toadette in a Peach costume, and I could be sad about Diddy and Funky Kong, but, like, that's my goat. The new costumes are really cool, and they add a ton of personality to a character roster already overflowing with it. And some of them are just drop-dead gorgeous. The princesses in particular serve with every fucking look they get. The battle mode is definitely one of the weakest in the series, but also somehow one of the stronger ones. Like, the battle tracks are all great, even if some of them are maybe a little too big, and they let you choose whether you want to play in teams or free-for-all, which is always better than forcing you into one or the other. Basically, every problem I have ever had with a Mario Kart battle mode is fixed in this game in exchange for the biggest fucking problem in series history. Because there is no world where Balloon Battle and Coin Rush alone are enough to make up an entire Mario Kart's battle mode. Like, sure, these are the ones you absolutely need to have, and if they weren't here in favor of something else, that would be its own problem, but it's always gonna suck when we don't get some variation of Shine Thief, and they couldn't even be bothered to put in the Bob-omb game. I don't know. I love this game, but some of the decisions they made in the kitchen have me scratching my head, especially when they take out my favorite car. But of course, Mario Kart is far from the only game I played this week. The next morning, on the actual launch day, because I went to the midnight release, I went on to purchase 3 additional games, such as yeah, okay, whatever. I bought the $10 tech demo. Breaking news, Nintendo fan wastes money. It's such a stupid release. I needed to know what the deal was. And if that's a crime, shoot me. Hey, no. Stop that. Okay, so I bought the game. I played the game. What do I think? All things considered, I kind of fuck with it. Just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, this is very much just a tech demo. It is in no way a proper game, and the fact that it cost even a single cent is downright ridiculous. But I bought it anyway out of a sense of morbid curiosity, and now that the money is already spent, it is kind of fun. Despite what everything about this game's coverage and marketing and price point would lead you to believe, there is a genuine level of charm and creativity here, and the idea to format the entire game like a convention, complete with information booths and demo kiosks and minigame showcases, is such a creative idea, and they perfectly managed to capture how overpriced and miserable and overcrowded and void of anything to do every convention I have ever been to has been. That's not a good thing. It's not all terrible. There is a genuine level of Nintendo charm here that just barely manages to peek its head out of the giant garbage pile of corporate greed. The stamp rally is stupid and honestly kind of annoying, and it's ridiculous to lock any of the content behind additional paywalls when the game itself isn't even free, but the rest of the package is genuinely kind of cool. I loved learning about the system's development, the components inside of it, and all the little quirks and features that they packed into this console. The individual demos are pretty interesting, especially the Rumble demos, and the mini games are surprisingly fun and do a great job of justifying even the stupidest Joy-Con features. At one point, I whipped out this dumbass tech demo while hanging out with my friends, and we spent 40 minutes playing one mini game. There is some genuine fun to be had here, and there is a value in this game as an educational resource, especially for the little kids that will always be Nintendo's primary target audience. It's not all garbage, there is something here. But even despite all of that, I just can't overlook the game's price tag. And it kind of seems like a lot of other people can't either. A lot of the heat that this game is getting seems to be informed almost exclusively by its price tag. And a lot of people, professional critics and average consumers alike, seem to be massively overplaying this game's flaws because of its price tag. Now, that's not to say that the game is flawless, or worth the money, or even anything more than the barest of bare minimums in a lot of areas, but I do wholeheartedly believe that if this game was free, as it obviously should have been, it would have gotten a much better reception than what it ended up getting, and could have even been seen as a major selling point for the Switch 2. This game will go down in history as one of the greatest fumbles in the entire video game industry, and if the Switch 2 does end up failing, it will be in no small part due to this game and its price point. But you know what isn't a fumble? The other games I bought. Fast Fusion is one of 4, count them 4, racing games available on the Nintendo Switch 2 at launch, as long as we don't count the 10 million Switch 1 racing games that are all backwards compatible. You call it bad timing, I call it brave. It's a sequel to Fast RMX, a game that similarly released early on in the Switch 1's life, and it's just great. The two games serve as a solid alternative to series like F-Zero and Wipeout in an era where those kinds of games don't come out anywhere near as often as they used to. And while the franchise absolutely wears its inspirations on its sleeve, it also does a great job of carving its own niche. These games are high-energy, lightning-fast, sci-fi themed racing games with some of the most impressive visuals I have ever seen. And Fast Fusion takes the foundation set by its predecessor and surpasses it in nearly every way, especially in the graphical department. I mean, just look at it. This is a game so gorgeous that when I was playing it with my girlfriend, one of my friends looked up from his own Switch 2 and said, "Wow, that looks really good." And he was right! If you are looking for a quality game and a brand new experience that really shows off what the Switch 2 is capable of graphically, I mean, there's not a ton of options. And Fast Fusion is like $15, dude. I've never been the biggest fan of Deltarune. I don't really know why that is. I'm a huge Undertale fan, always have been, but Deltarune Chapters 1 and 2 just didn't do it for me. They were fun, I finished them, but I just didn't connect with them in the way that the rest of the fanbase did. Fortunately, one of the few benefits of a console with an underwhelming launch lineup is that sometimes you end up playing games that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. So due in no small part to the massive amounts of FOMO I was starting to feel from all of my friends playing this game at the same time, I bought chapters 3 and 4, and holy shit! I get it now. I haven't even started Chapter 4 yet, but Chapter 3 is some of the most fun I have ever had with a video game ever. Chapter 3, and I suppose Deltarune as a whole, is just so fun and vibrant and energetic and joyful. There is so much expression in its animation, so much character in its dialogue. Entire stories are told in the silence between its text boxes, and the trademark verbal and physical comedy that made Undertale famous return in full force and have me, well, not quite laughing. It's more like, dude, fuck this game. And right when all of the fun and joy and comedy reaches its peak, the game makes sure to hit you with one emotional gut punch after the other. Just as it always has. It definitely has its flaws, and the corniness seems hard-baked into its DNA, but despite everything, it's still a very special game, and I cannot wait for the rest of it. Well, it's official. I'm a Deltarune fan now. But that's all the new stuff I've been playing, because the Switch 2 has, 5 games that actually came out this year? So let's talk about some older stuff. It does make up most of the system's library. One of the biggest selling points of the Nintendo Switch 2 is the ability to play Gamecube games. It's something that fans have been asking for since the Wii U, and now that it's finally here, it's kind of underwhelming. Almost exclusively because we only got 3 games at launch. What are we doing here? Wait, hold on. Okay, now it's 6. And the games they picked are great, especially Windwaker, but the lineup is severely lacking. No Luigi's Mansion, no Pikmin, no Metroid Prime, no Mario Sunshine? So many of the system's quintessential defining titles are just absent at launch. As long as you ignore the Genesis collection, which even Sega likes to do, this is the first NSO collection to launch without a Mario game. The NES collection has 4! That's more games than the entire GameCube lineup. And I cannot stress enough how weird it is that the GameCube's primary launch title and new IP are just absent. This is the worst the drip feed has ever been, and I can't help but feel a little worried that all of the Switch 1 GameCube remakes and remasters are part of the problem. Like, are we just not going to get Pikmin 1 and 2 now? And it's not even like I care that much. This barely affects me. All of the games that I'm bringing up, I own physically in some capacity, including 2 of the games on the console. But as a primarily outside observer, not including so many quintessential, iconic, necessary GameCube titles at launch makes the addition of GameCube games feel almost pointless. That being said, the games we do have are great, especially Windwaker. I will not be talking about Windwaker today. Of the 3 GameCube games available on the Switch 2 at launch, F-Zero GX was by far the one I was the most excited for, partially because it was the only one I hadn't already spent 1 million hours playing, but mostly because I just love F-Zero. This is a series of fast-paced, high-energy racing games with intense, difficult gameplay and gorgeous visuals that consistently push the graphical power of every system they're on. And F-Zero GX is quite possibly the best in the series. And with the most racers, tracks, and side content in series history, it is impossible not to fall in love with it. I've only just started playing it, and I am already very impressed by what this game has to offer. I couldn't even imagine what the series would be like if it continued after this entry in a meaningful capacity. Actually, I can. It's called Fast Fusion, and it rocks. And with the launch of GameCube games on Nintendo Switch Online, every game in the F-Zero franchise is available on a single system for the first time ever. As long as we pretend that the Satellaview doesn't exist. Shouldn't be a problem. Damn it. The other GameCube game I played this week was Soul Calibur 2. Soul Calibur 2 is a gorgeous game from a console full of gorgeous games. I don't know what it is about the GameCube library, but damn near every one of its major releases holds up visually in a way that most of its competitors failed to replicate. And Soul Calibur 2 is no exception. It's also just an incredible fighting game, with a solid roster of great characters with huge movesets, detailed animations, and distinct personalities. There is a lot here for fans of fighting games, a lot here for fans of Soul Calibur. Hell, there is something here for people who just like Link. I poured a lot of time into this game long before it ever came to Nintendo Switch Online, so I know firsthand just how much it has to offer. And to top it all off, it's one of the earliest examples of a Nintendo property crossing over with a third-party franchise. It is quite literally a piece of gaming history. So as far as GameCube NSO launch titles go, you could do a lot worse than Soul Calibur 2. And then I didn't play any Windwaker during launch week, mostly because I already played it start to finish several years ago, but also because, dude, when would I have found the time? But speaking of old-ass games, one of the Switch 2's primary selling points is its full backwards compatibility with all Switch 1 titles. But it doesn't end there. Some of these games received paid Switch 2 upgrades. Others received free updates that provide additional Switch 2 compatibility. We will talk about both of these later. And some of them just run better on the Switch 2 by virtue of it being a more powerful console. Smash Ultimate is not one of those games. But what it is a 17GB game on a ridiculously small 32GB console that I made the mistake of purchasing digitally. And over the years, as I played it less and less, it became more and more difficult to justify allowing it to take up that much space on my console, especially after my Switch 1 stopped reading SD cards. But the Switch 2 has a 256GB internal storage right out of the box. And while that is downright atrocious in comparison to its competition, it's still more than enough room for Smash Ultimate. I like Smash a lot, like a self-destructive amount. And for the first time in 2 years, I am able to play Smash whenever, wherever. And taking a break from it has only made it more fun. My baby is back in my arms, and I have never felt prouder to be a dad. Do you hear that? On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, let's talk about the Switch 2 upgrades. There are currently 3 Switch 1 games with paid Switch 2 upgrades. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and of all things, Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom both received $10 upgrades that come with improved frame rates and resolutions, HDR support, and a crumb of bonus content. And Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Made This Title As Long As Possible, received a $3 upgrade that delivers minor but meaningful improvements to the game's overall performance. And of these 3 games, I can't get the Breath of the Wild upgrade because I played the game on Wii U. A fun fact that nobody ever seems to believe when I tell them. And I don't really care about Fantasy Life's performance improvements. It's not really something I'm super worried about with a game like this. Which leaves us with Tears of the Kingdom. As I said before, the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom upgrades cost $10 a piece, or you can buy the Switch 2 editions as full-price games if, for whatever reason, you don't already own them, or if you do own them and feel like spending another $80 this week. I didn't even feel like spending $10. Fortunately, if you already own the Switch 1 versions and have a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, you can upgrade both games for free, and that's exactly what I did. And it's great. Tears of the Kingdom at a consistent frame rate with full HDR support takes an already beautiful game and makes it downright stunning. And being able to play it at 1080p in handheld mode is just incredible. It's not enough to spark an entirely new playthrough, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't at least think about trying to get and upgrade a used Switch 1 copy of Breath of the Wild after messing around with this game. But really, the only Switch 2 upgrade I'm actually looking forward to is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This one looks sick as hell, and it might actually be worth the money. I really hope it's free. Alongside the Switch 2 games that received paid upgrades and the ones that didn't receive upgrades at all, a few select Switch 1 titles received free updates that added game share, improved frame rates, and support for select Switch 2 features. Mario Odyssey now runs at a consistent 60 FPS with improved resolutions. Link's Awakening and ARMS also run at more consistent FPSs with higher resolutions. Game Builder Garage has Joy-Con mouse support, and damn near every other updated game sees similar performance and resolution improvements alongside online multiplayer through game share. So which one of these great games did I play first? I'll give you a hint, it wasn't one of the good ones. I kept seeing footage of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet running at a clean 60 FPS with a passable resolution and no major bugs or glitches. And I thought to myself, I kind of remember sort of liking that game. I wonder what it would be like to love it. I'm about 5 hours into my new playthrough. This is my trainer. His name is Pokemon Violet. And as much as I wish I could say that the performance enhancements make Pokemon Violet feel like a brand new game, they just don't. 60 FPS and 1080p are nice and all, especially in handheld mode, but there's still an egregious amount of pop-in. And no amount of frame rate and resolution buffs are gonna stop this game from looking bland and ugly. That is an art style issue. It's definitely a better experience now that the game actually functions, but I'm starting to realize that a lot of what I liked about this game the first time around came from the novelty of it all and not from the quality of the game itself. But functioning better doesn't change the fact that it still sucks in so many other ways. This game has so many problems from even the most fundamental levels of game design that it could be on the Switch 9 and I would still have problems with it. And I'm one of the people that actually liked this game. And the final game I played on the Switch 2 during the week of its launch was, of all things, fucking Fortnite. I was very impressed by what little I had seen of the Switch 2's mouse controls and was looking for a game that could really show me what they were truly capable of. Preferably a shooter, because I've always been of the opinion that the ideal way to play shooters is with a joystick in one hand and a mouse in the other. And now that I finally had a chance to test my theory, I just needed to find a game to play. And it was between this and Cyberpunk. And obviously I chose the free one. Even if it meant playing Fortnite for the first time in 8 months, on my old Switch account, with none of my skins. A fate worse than death. A game like Fortnite is always a good thing to have at a console's launch. Even on a system with no launch titles, supporting free games means that there's at least something to do. But on the Switch 2, Fortnite serves a much better purpose. It's a tech demo. Not only for the new mouse controls and voice chat features, but also for the console's graphical power. On the Switch 1, Fortnite looked like this. On the Switch 2, it looks like an actual game. And while impressive isn't exactly the right word, Fortnite for Nintendo Switch finally approaching the bare minimum is really something. Especially when you consider that Fortnite, of all games, is the most graphically demanding and visually complex it has ever been. The most detailed and technically demanding version of Fortnite runs and looks infinitely better on Switch 2 than the least detailed version of Fortnite on the Switch 1. That is crazy in a bad way. As for the mouse controls, I am unimpressed. The actual mouse is great. It's fast, responsive, capable of a level of precision far beyond anything a thumbstick could ever achieve, but it's so obviously just an alternative control scheme. You still have to use the same buttons in the same way on whichever Joy-Con you're using as a mouse, which becomes kind of a problem when you're holding it like a freak. My reaction time is dead. It is basically impossible to multitask at all. The very act of jumping or crouching becomes an ordeal. The Fortnite control scheme is so obviously not compatible with single controller gameplay. The sheer amount of separate button inputs required in any individual game of Fortnite is just not compatible with this control scheme. At this point in time, the mouse controls are at best a fun novelty with a lot of potential, but I don't really think we'll be seeing its full capabilities until we get some games built from the ground up with Joy-Con mice in mind, or at the very least reworked to include them in a meaningful capacity. And that's it. That is everything I played during the first week of the Switch 2's life. Unsurprisingly, it's almost all old ass shit because, and I cannot stress this enough, this console, at launch in 2025, has less new games than the 3DS did. But I am still very happy with the new stuff that we got, the way the console performed as a whole, as well as the general quirks of the system itself. And despite all of the massive, undeniable problems that this system and this company have, I am very excited for the next few years of this console's life. And to find out if it becomes the next Wii U. That would be really funny. Did you guys know I own one of those too? I also own a Dreamcast. Could you imagine if it ended up being the next Dreamcast instead? If it almost killed the company? If it became the last console Nintendo ever put out? That would be kind of hilarious.